Hi, I'm Matt Geiger. The purpose of this video is to give my opinion on gun control. A lot of the times we let the Democrats or Republicans pull us into the mud of politics and forget that we are actually trying to make our country a better place. This leaves a huge void where discussions should happen but just don't. So let's get started by answering this question on gun control. What are we trying to achieve here? It seems obvious, but really it's not, because we need to keep in mind that whatever we do, there are always going to be trade-offs. In this case, we're trying to prevent as many lives from being lost as possible, but at the same time, we're trying to protect our liberties or freedoms as much as we possibly can. So with that as our goal, it makes sense to start with the issues that cost the most lives and work our way down from there. The top gun killer might come as a surprise because it's so seldom covered by the media, but the majority of gun deaths, almost 2/3 actually, are caused by suicide. Suicide is a sensitive subject, but considering the sheer number of lives lost, over 20,000 in 2013, it needs to be discussed more. The issue is a lot more complicated than other causes of gun deaths because the shooter is also the victim, making the line between the life and freedom question a whole lot murkier. But there's a group of victims for whom the situation isn't really murky at all. Unfortunately, a significant group included among the suicide victims are children. In 2005, 4,474 people under the age of 24 committed suicide. And if you've watched my last video, you know that the method a victim uses matters incredibly. Gun suicides have an 85% fatality rate, while other common methods like poisoning and cutting have 2% and 1% fatality rates respectively, so there's a huge difference. Since it's illegal for people under 21 years old to own a gun, a child will usually take the gun from a parent. In my opinion, there's just no excuse for storing a firearm in a way that a child can access. A child with undiagnosed depression combined with unfettered gun access is just so clearly a recipe for disaster. For this reason, I'd be in favor of either gun locks, additional liability on gun owners when a child accesses a negligently stored firearm, or some other safety storage requirement. Research has shown that suicide is usually an impulsive decision. Even the slightest of safeguards would probably discourage a child from taking their own life. This also has the benefit of preventing accidental gun deaths too, where children are at risk. You can argue about the liberty trade-off here, but in my opinion, it's no doubt about it, it's worth making. No bans, just safe storage to save the lives of children. I think that's worth it. Gun homicide is the second cause of gun deaths, making up a full third of all gun deaths, or 11,000 deaths in 2013. If we dig into that number a bit more, 2/3 of gun homicide victims are black men or Hispanic men, usually in poor urban areas. When we talked about guns in the inner city in a previous video, we learned that a huge chunk of illegal guns are provided by straw purchasers, a friend or family member without a criminal record legally buying a gun and giving it to somebody who couldn't have passed the background check themselves. But it's not like it's any new revelation either. The FBI has been trying for years to go after the sources, straw purchasers, and gun traffickers. The problem is there's a high burden of proof in gun trafficking cases under federal law. That's why traffickers are usually only prosecuted under record-keeping laws and are on the streets again in no time. Straw purchasers usually get off with a slap on the wrist too, because it's near impossible to convict a straw purchaser, and no specific straw purchaser federal law even exists. So the government can usually only prosecute them for lying on the background check form. That's why I support making punishments for straw purchasers and gun traffickers extremely harsh, imposing new federal laws against the most common practices, and making the burden of proof for the government lower in all these cases. Don't get me wrong, I don't think this will completely eliminate guns on the street, but I think it'll definitely help. Right now, the black market of straw purchasers and gun traffickers operates predominantly on trust, as indicated in a Chicago criminal gun study. By imposing fierce penalties, we can get some of these criminals off the streets while we crank up the risk on the remaining criminals, so it makes the black market contacts even more paranoid about trusting each other. I think these two policies will do the most to save lives while also protecting our freedoms, but I'll just go ahead and weigh in on some actual current policy ideas that are thrown around, starting off with closing the gun show loophole. As I've discovered, the gun show loophole isn't as big a problem as politicians want to make it out to be, but for that matter, closing the gun show loophole wouldn't be all that problematic either. Overall, it's just an issue that sucks up too much of our political capital and time. And it just has little relevance to the larger overall problem of gun violence. But I'm sure you guys want a thumbs up or thumbs down on this regardless of whether I think it's important or not. So If I could snap my fingers, I would close the gun show loophole, requiring all gun sellers to conduct background checks on buyers. And I would make sure there's a system, though, allowing for hobby and inherited guns to sell through some other venue, but one requiring a background check. But just again, I want to emphasize again, I do not think this is what we should be focusing on. The gun show loophole is such a small piece of the overall gun problem, and it just doesn't deserve the time and attention it gets. That I am sure on. And in that same vein, I just want to touch on something else. The endlessly debated topic of assault weapons. Before I get started on this, though, let me just speak specifically about the political preoccupation with this. Every year, we have tens of thousands of gun-related deaths in this country, and each year, an estimated 100 or so are from assault weapons. That's much less than 1/100th of 1%, 1/100th of 1% of all gun deaths. You know what? It's fine if you want to look for a solution that would impact very few people, but when you're expending so much political capital and so much time and so much energy for something you'll have a marginal impact on the gun debate, while we're ignoring tens of thousands of lives lost each year, it's just totally disingenuous to say that you care about gun violence. Despite my tirade, I know some people will still say, yeah, but what do you think about an assault weapons ban? So, fine, here's my response. On one side, when Clinton passed his 10-year assault weapons ban, it unsurprisingly had no noticeable impact on gun deaths. The majority of even mass shootings are actually done with hand weapons, not assault weapons. On the other hand, assault weapons are likely a bit more deadly than other types of weapons, having slightly higher muzzle velocities and larger ammo mag. An assault weapons ban would impact almost nothing for both sides of the debate, in my opinion. I'm in favor of my politicians focusing their time and energy on other problems, especially other gun-related problems, which, as I've indicated, we do have a serious problem. Every time the public fixates on assault weapons, we ignore every other important issue going on in our country. For me, that's just not a price I'm willing to pay for regulations that have proven to be ineffective and will have a negligible effect on gun deaths. This means leaving the laws on assault weapons the way that they are to focus on the more pressing issues. Thanks for listening to my opinion, but more importantly than anything else I've said in this video, just do the research and stay informed. Thanks for watching.